views, opinions, and content of this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Local Matters Broadcasting, LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Having said that, it's now time to say good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as the COA. We are your local nonprofit agency who for the past 51 years has been leading and advocating for the dignity and independence of seniors and responding to their changing needs. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio WFOI 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Before we get into our show, let me remind you, as I do each and every week, if you have a question, comment, or a suggestion for a radio show topic, or if you would like to enter our drawing for a $100 gift card to Kaufman's or our $100 gift card to Circuit City, well, you can enter by emailing me at radio@coasjc.org. Again, that's radio@coasjc.org. And you need to be one of the first ones to do that. So the first one to email me will get a $100 gift card to Kaufman's. And the one after that will get the $100 gift card to Circuit City. And in case you're not aware, both of those places are no longer in business. So don't even bother emailing me about that. But if you do have a suggestion or a comment about the radio show, I would love to hear from you. Again, it's radio@coasjc.org. Also, before we get into our show this morning, I want to announce that the Subaru Share the Love event is here once again. Meals on Wheels is proud to be a national charity partner for the 18th year. From now until January 2nd, Subaru and its retailers will donate a minimum of $300 to charities for every new vehicle leased or sold. This initiative will benefit seniors in our community, so please select Meals on Wheels when you purchase or lease a new Subaru vehicle. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to www.mealsonwheelsamerica.org/Subaru-share-the-love. Hopefully you got that. All right, but if you do, just go to mealsonwheelsamerica.org and you can look for the Subaru Share the Love part if you need more information on that. And that would be very helpful to us in providing meals to seniors throughout St. Johns County. All right, well, this morning I want to talk about one of the locations that I talk about very often on this show, and that is our River House location. Monday through Thursday, River House serves as a lifelong learning center, providing a variety of classes to anyone 18 years of age or older. We offer classes in art and music and dance and exercise and language, even herbology. And we also even have fishing, all at reasonable prices. But on the weekend, and sometimes in the evenings through the week, the River House becomes a setting for weddings, civic milestones, and personal Hallmark events. So if you're looking for a beautiful location to hold one of your events, I highly recommend the River House. And here this morning to tell us how to do that is Crystal Hill, River House Events Manager, and Janel Graham, River House Events Assistant Manager. Crystal and Janel, welcome to the weekly radio show of COA.
Woohoo! Thank you, Brian. We're happy to be here.
It's good to have you here. And so, Crystal, this is your first time on the radio show with me. Janelle, you've been on before. But so we're going to let Crystal start off and just share a bit about your background, what brought you to the River House events as the new events manager.
Yeah, well, as far as my background, I have been in the wedding and event and hospitality industry for 20 years. It's a little shameful to say on live air, but here we are. But I came to St. Augustine to go to Flagler College in 2000. So upon graduation, I found myself in love with the event and hospitality industry and worked at several St. Augustine locations, became very heavily involved in the St. Augustine Wedding and Event Association. And I actually got married at River House in 2014. And so I'm very familiar with River House. And so when I got the call that this position was available, and couldn't say no. So it's exciting to be here.
Well, I've enjoyed getting to know you in the few months that you've been in the position. And, just in this short bit of time, I feel that you've been doing a phenomenal job. And I just love that you have such a servant's heart, like you're helping out in so many areas as well to make sure that we're not only doing the weddings, as fabulous as possible, but also serving the seniors, and that's what this is all about. So, thank you for being here today to introduce yourself and to tell our listeners a little bit more about River House events. And so, Janelle, again, you've been on before, but go ahead and, if you would, share our listeners about your background and what brought you to River House events.
Absolutely. My journey with River House actually began long ago. I actually attended my junior and senior prom at River House. And then as the years went by, I got involved in the wedding industry by being a planner's assistant with a private company. And then I started with the COA about 2 years ago, and my relationship with River House just blossomed from there. And then I was offered the position as the assistant manager in October of last year, and I was more than happy to take it, and I have loved the role ever since.
Well, fantastic. All right, well, we're going to take our first break in just a moment, but before we do that, let's just kind of jump into our first question because we do have a little bit of time. And the first question is this: current specials and packages that you're promoting. What do you got going on right now that you're trying to get the word out about?
Yeah, so for those of us in the industry, it is engagement season. For those of us that are familiar with that, from the time between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day, we see the most engagements and lots of inquiries. And so some of those inquiries that are coming in are still for 2026 dates. So we have limited dates open in 2026. So we are running a 10% off the venue rental promotion for those remaining 2026 dates. And so we would love to hear from couples who are interested in learning more about River House and take advantage of that little promotion for 2026 dates.
Well, that's very interesting. I never knew that most engagements occur between November or between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day. That's very interesting. And
Tis the season.
Yeah, and my wife and I actually got engaged on Thanksgiving 29 years ago. So
you were a trendsetter.
Yeah, so we're thinking about next year for Thanksgiving going to Bradenton Beach because that's where we got engaged.
Oh,
sweet.
Yeah,
vow renewal?
Maybe we shall see. That's a thought. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our first break right now, and so we'll continue our conversation right after these messages. And welcome back to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined this morning by Crystal Hill, River House Events Manager, and Janel Graham, River House Events Assistant Manager, and we're talking about what goes on at River House when it's not being used for classes that our seniors take Monday through Thursday. And so typically, most of the time on the weekends, it's weddings, but there are other events that go on from time to time as well. And so we're just going to dive more into some of the questions that we have here. And so the next question on my list is, does River House event accommodate corporate and nonprofit events? And if so, what kind of features and support can organizations expect?
Yes. So being owned by a nonprofit ourselves, we love to support other nonprofits like the Limelight and places like that, as well as other corporate businesses. If they are a nonprofit, we, of course, offer tax exempt. And then as well for our corporate, we try to do a nice discount as well. We've hosted many events for South State Bank, UF Health, places like that. Our facility is large enough to accommodate these larger parties for dinners, holiday parties, things like that. We have a projector and a screen that can be provided for events for like this. And then we also offer many other things to help with businesses.
Well, so let's backtrack for just a moment. And in case anybody's listening out there that has never, ever walked through the doors of River House, give a description of our beautiful building. Because I think it's important to describe the venue.
Yeah, so it definitely is a venue that you have to see to believe. But you walk in, it is a grand entryway. You proceed down a hallway into our library, which is comforting. It almost feels like you're in your own home if your home was that large. And then you walk out onto our patio, which faces the Intercoastal Waterway, overlooks the St. Augustine Lighthouse, which obviously is iconic landmark here in St. Augustine. We have an observation dock, so for corporate events, a lot of times they will use that patio for cocktail hour, for mingling, before guests then proceed into the ballroom. The ballroom has a 32-foot wide circular dance floor, so big enough for large parties to enjoy and celebrate and have a good time on that dance floor. Our ballroom can accommodate 200 20 to 300 people, depending on the setup and how the room is arranged. Beautiful gold chandeliers. Has an old world charm feeling, but obviously has all of the modern amenities that clients want today.
And then you have separate rooms for where the bride's getting ready and the groom is at and things like that.
So lots of auxiliary spaces. So for those corporate events, makes perfect sense for auctions or getting ready spaces, changing rooms if they're having a performance, things of that nature. For weddings, definitely we have those 2 gathering suites for couples to use. So if they are not seeing each other before the wedding, they have separate spaces. Many of our couples have ceremonies off-site, so sometimes they will just come back to River House. They're married, woo, they don't have to be separated any longer. They can use just one of those gathering spaces in that case.
Yeah, and a couple of nice things is, you can have your wedding outside on the patio part. But if it's raining, then it's big enough that you can move it inside if you have to.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then I think another advantage to the River House location is that even though right around River House itself, there's limited parking, but because it's part of Council on Aging, you have access to our parking lot right across the street at our main headquarters, 180 Marine Street. Plenty of parking there. That's not going to cost the guest anything extra.
Nope.
Exactly. So if you are looking for a venue in the downtown area of St. Augustine, obviously parking is definitely a hurdle that you have to overcome for your guests. And if you want your guests to have a good experience, providing them free and ample parking at the site is huge. So both for weddings and corporate events, they love the fact that we have plenty of parking.
All right. So the venue is, of course, known for its connection to the local community as a senior center. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about is how does, booking an event at River House support the programming that we do for the seniors?
Yeah. So Council on the Aging really, truly 15 years ago or longer than that had a wonderful vision of building this building that would be iconic in St. Augustine, that would be large enough to have classes, to be a senior center, but would be built in the sense that it would be useful as a venue for events, weddings, special celebrations. And so knowing that revenue for those events would support the overall building and paying for the building itself, keeping that out, keeping that expense out of the COA's overall budget and making sure that those events support that overall income for those expenses of operating a large building. And then anything in excess of that goes back into that programming. And so goes back into Meals on Wheels, goes back into supporting those services for seniors and their caregivers.
Yeah, so I guess my question would then be, when you are talking to, couples that are coming in, they're looking for a venue, have you discovered that when you relay that to them, does that make them more inclined to book with us because they know that any profit that comes from their wedding is then going to be used to help seniors through the services and programs that we provide?
Definitely. It's something that Janel and I both touch on in our tours. It's one of the first things we talk about as soon as they come in. Are they familiar with the COA? Are they familiar with River House? If they aren't, then that's a great segue for us to introduce the fact that River House is actually owned by the COA. And as I always say, their love and having their event supports those programs.
And I know that in times past, sometimes when we have one of our events coming up, and if there's a wedding, then a lot of times they'll donate their flowers from the wedding that we then use for the event the following day. And so that's always a nice thing as well.
Yeah, we just had that. The COA had their annual gala, and Janelle and I and another COA volunteer went to another venue at about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night to pick up those florals that the bride graciously donated. And those were used as centerpieces for the COA gala.
And it's very appreciated because then that's just one less thing that we have to purchase for the event, which means that that's more money that we're raising, for the seniors that we're providing programs and services for. All right, so let's kind of walk through, let's say there's a couple out there listening right now, and they just got engaged, and
Woohoo!
they're so excited,
Congratulations.
and they're right now in that process of looking for a venue where they're going to have the wedding. So let's walk them through the step-by-step process. So let's just pretend they just gave you a call, you answer the phone, and they want to know, okay, what's the step-by-step process to get this going?
Yeah, so for us, it's definitely a little Q&A in the beginning, talking to the couple, finding out if they know how many guests that they are hosting. That's usually the first thing that we recommend that couples do in the planning process is make that guest list, because that guest list will determine what venues can accommodate you, what your overall budget might be based on whether you're hosting 50 people or 150 people. That's going to fluctuate your budget immensely. So that's usually the first question that we ask is how many guests are you looking to host? Because that allows us to showcase the venue in the best way possible for the number of guests that you're having. And then from there, we want to know if they have a date, if they are a time frame in mind. And then we can obviously check availability. If we don't have that particular date, we will give them other dates in that time frame that are available and are easily booked if they so choose to move forward. From there, we'd love to get them on property to showcase the venue, to show them everything that they have access to when booking us. And then Janel is really good about learning a little bit about them and starting to put them in the right direction for finding vendors that are going to be able to provide them wonderful services. Because at River House, we do not provide food or beverage service. So they do have to work with an outside caterer, a bar service for mobile bartending.
And a coordinator.
So we have really great relationships with vendors in the local area. So we're always happy to recommend them based on what we think would work best for the client.
And so as far as what can they expect from your staff? Like and I guess how involved are you with the wedding?
I'd like to say we're very hands-on, from the booking process to the final payment to the final walkthrough to the rehearsal. Day of, usually Crystal or myself will be there, and then we will stay till about ceremony. If it's a reception only, we'll stay through guest arrival just to make sure all the vendors are comfortable and the planner is in good graces. We then turn the baton over to 2 of our River House staff. These ladies have been with the company for at least 10 years apiece. They're very knowledgeable and they want to know more about the couple too. They are there for all the venue related things. So dimming lights and turning the shades. And if a glass breaks on the dance floor, they're there with a broom and dustpan. They're just there to make sure all the venue related things go well.
Yeah, and through that booking process, Janelle and I are very hands-on working with the client, answering questions, creating floor plans, adjusting floor plans, recommending vendors, answering even questions that aren't venue related. But if they're wanting to host a rehearsal dinner, we'll give those recommendations.
All right, the music means it's time for our next commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. And when you hear the Ramones, you know you're listening to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA. Next week in the studio, we'll have Melanie Lamaglio with the Rebloom Center. So tune in next week, same place, same time, right here on WFOY 102.1 FM. My guests today are Crystal Hill and Janelle Graham with River House Events, and we're talking about things that people can expect if they're booking River House for one of their events. And we're specifically talking about, before the break, we're talking about weddings. And so some follow-up questions that I have with that. I'm just curious, how much liberty does someone have to do the wedding their way?
So we want to give our couples a lot of leeway. So we want them to personalize their ceremony and reception, make it truly about their union and their relationship. So as long as it is legal and within, any kind of city or county ordinances, we want them to have the wedding that they want. So we do have a few policies at River House for the protection of the building. So as long as they're not, permanently affixing something Unfortunately, we don't allow sparklers because people were putting them in our fountain. As I say, when you hand someone something lit who is also lit, that
It never
usually-
ends well.
that
It never ends
usually
well.
ends,
That is true.
Disastrous.
There's always, it can be dangerous.
Exactly. So, but we want them to customize. We want them to have the wedding that they've envisioned. So whether that is a theme, whether that might be fireworks, okay, that's great. Let's get you a permit through the city. So we want them to do what they want to do.
Exactly.
So in your experience and all the years that you've been doing weddings, I guess my next question is, what is like one of the oddest wedding themes or maybe the most eccentric wedding theme that you've ever witnessed yourself?
Yeah, for me, it was at another venue that I worked at, and the couple only played music from Nine Inch Nails during their reception, which was very important to them, but it was definitely unique for me.
And the guests too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Janelle?
Back in January, we hosted a wedding at River House, and sometimes on a timeline we'll get what's called crazy hour, which is where open dancing begins, and brides will bring out all these crazy props, and it's for dancing. So we've got glow sticks, light up sunglasses, cowboy hats, things like that. Well, this bride had an aerialist and a light up gentleman that was dressed as a transformer. It was something I had never seen before in all the years of weddings that I've done. I've just never seen anything quite like this. A stilt walker. The poor guy could barely clear the door because he was so tall.
Wow. Well, that's fun. I mean,
It made for a great time.
yeah, and it made it unique for their wedding. I'm sure people will always remember that,
Exactly.
right? And they'll be talking about it for years to come.
Right.
And then for themselves, right, as the couple, like as they look back on it 20 years later, they'll be like, laughing about the things that they did at
through the party
wedding.
of a lifetime.
Yeah, and their kids will be laughing about it.
Exactly. Guest experience is definitely important for weddings today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and they're spending a lot of money for it, right? And so it should be they should have that liberty to design it how
Of
they
course.
want within reason, right? So I do want to jump to that though. What can folks expect as far as cost wise goes?
Yeah. So for costs, a venue like ours that is as large as ours, that provides as much space, there are a lot of amenities that we include in our venue rental, from your table linens to your china, flatware, glassware, the fact that you have access to the gathering suites in advance of your ceremony or reception time. So our venue rental begins anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000, depending on the day of the week and time of year.
And just remember that money is supporting local seniors in your community.
Exactly. So, but there's a lot of benefit to that investment of that venue rental. And then there's also some cost savings that our venue provides, and the fact that couples can actually go out and purchase their own beer, wine, and liquor. They are not held to an open bar price that they would pay at a venue that might actually provide food and beverage service.
And then what about like dates that typically don't get booked, right? That for whatever reason, like people just say like nobody wants to have a wedding on this particular time of the year. Do you give discounts in those time frames?
Absolutely.
Definitely. So July, August, January, February, we offer a 5% discount off the venue rental. We also give a military discount if either of the couple is either active or retired military. So we want to support those that support us.
Exactly.
And then what about hurricane season? Right? Thankfully, no hurricanes this season.
I think
Yeah.
the first
So
in
nice.
forever.
Last couple years have been really bad. So thankful for that. But in the event that a hurricane comes, right, and a couple can't control that. So
Right.
what do you
Nor
do
can
in
we.
that?
Nor
Yeah,
can
nor can
we.
we, right? So what do you do in that instance?
Yeah. So for our couples who are booking during hurricane season, we highly recommend that they obtain event insurance. That protects them financially in the fact that if there was a hurricane and they had to postpone, many of their vendors contract-wise are not going to give refunds or not able to move money to a new date. We are fortunate for River House that we are able to move any funds that they've paid at that point to another mutually agreed upon date. So they do have that opportunity to move their date with us and host their wedding at a later date. Not all of their vendors are going to have that ability. If your caterer has always purchased food or your florist has already purchased flowers, you're not going to get that money back, which is where event insurance comes in and protects you if there is a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
So where would people go for that?
So we can actually provide
The event helper.
Yeah, the event helper is who we recommend. There's also several other companies that offer wedding and event insurance.
Very interesting. That's good. You don't realize things like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that there's insurance for so many different things and so many reasons. And so that's great because you just can't control the weather. I mean, you never know if a hurricane's coming our direction.
Yeah, and there's so many other things that are out of a couple's control. So I had a client in a previous venue who booked a band out of New Orleans, and they were flying out the day of the wedding to the venue, and the New Orleans airport went down without power. So all flights canceled. The band is now stuck in New Orleans and cannot get to Florida where the venue was. And so they got in a van and they started to drive, but that's a 12-hour drive. And so the planner that this couple had found a DJ who was available to provide music for their ceremony and through dinner. And then the band rolled into the venue halfway through dinner, set up, and then rocked to the reception.
Just in time for open dancing.
However, they spent quite a bit on that band. So then the event insurance helped recoup some of that funds.
All right. That music means we've got to take our next commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. And welcome back to the final segment of the weekly radio show of the St. John's County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined this morning by Crystal Hill and Janel Graham with River House Events. And so just a few more questions that I have on my list here. So let's talk about social media. We know that that's a great way to connect. How can listeners follow River House Events online, and what kind of updates do you give as you're doing that?
Yes, we have all the things. We have a Facebook, we have an Instagram, we have a Pinterest, and we now have a TikTok. They can follow us at River House Events. We are on all platforms. We post pretty much all the weddings. We try to do a story for every event. It's just a great way to stay connected and get inspiration for your event yourself.
Right. And for couples who are in the midst of planning, it's a great opportunity to see what vendors are offering, different services. We always want to tag our vendors so that others can find amazing services as well.
All right. So thinking back on some of the different events that you've done, I realize, Crystal, you haven't been here very long at River House. Janelle, you've been doing it a little bit longer. So is there any creative event that you've hosted? Like, what's the most creative event? And then what made it so special for you? And even if it wasn't at River House, maybe something that you've experienced in one of your other places that you've been at.
Well, we recently had actually a River House couple who the bride hand embroidered cocktail napkins, and that was their place card. And I just thought that was a really super sweet touch that she went through all that time and had that done. And that was really something neat that the guests could then take with them. So it was kind of a twofer. So it was their place card, and it was also their favor. And that was really sweet and sentimental. But we love when we see couples personalize and add touches. So when we have, their pups at the ceremony, who act as the ring bearers and, just things like that really make it sweet and special.
Yeah.
Anything for you, Janelle?
I can kind of piggyback on what Crystal shared. We had a bride who did personalized coasters with the lighthouse on them for each place setting. And that was, again, a double as a favor. And I think little touches like that are very sweet. A lot of times they will do a guest book or a welcome sign with the logo of River House or a map or drawing of River House, which I think is very, very special as well.
When I think about, we videoed our wedding, right? And every once in a while we when our anniversary comes up, and we'll pop it in and watch it. And I just think how special that is, because there's so many people in that video that are no longer with us.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just those little things like that. So, the different creative things that you're talking about that just make it special. Right. And then, for us, it was the video. And then one of the things that we did at our reception is every time, people were clinging their glasses or whatever to have us kiss, then we drew a name. And that person had to come up and tell a story about us.
Oh, goodness.
And so we have video of folks coming up and, telling their favorite funny story. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just makes it so memorable, to have those type of things. So, as far as when you're seeing the event come to life, like what is your personal favorite part of it? Because there's so much planning that goes into it. There's so many details. It can be stressful, right? What happens in that event when it comes together and it's just like, this is why I do what I do. This is why I love doing this.
The kiss, Brian, the kiss. The execution of the ceremony, if there is one on site.
Right. And for me, it's definitely that moment where the double doors open, the bride crosses that threshold, and her partner at the other end of the aisle,
crying,
sees her, or him at that point.
Yep.
You never know. Love is love. And just, they see each other across the aisle, or from one another, and it's just that like anticipation and that walk down the aisle, and then obviously saying their vows, the kiss, and then at that point it's just celebration, and it's all fun from there.
And seeing the bride's vision come to life. We meet with her and the groom at the 30-day walkthrough, and we sit down together and we draw her floor plan, and we finalize the timeline, and we pick her linens and the colors, and we talk about florals and how she wants her ceremony to look, and actually seeing all the vendors come together to create her vision and bring that to life is what is so special.
Definitely.
Well, and I loved, the fact that you bring out the point that, we're so accustomed to saying bride and groom, but it could also be groom and groom or bride and bride.
Bride and bride.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
So that's certainly welcome at River House as
Absolutely.
Of course, definitely.
well. Yeah. So, there's somebody out there that's just listening in, and they're, kind of on the fence. Maybe they've seen some venues already. Like, what would you say to that person that, maybe they still want to look and, what would be your selling point to them as if they're still looking for a place?
For us, it's seeing is believing. The venue is so unique in the fact that it is in downtown, but you are on the water. You have outdoor, indoor space. The ballroom, while it is beautifully appointed, really is a blank canvas. And so you can create whatever your vision might be, whether that is, an enchanted garden, whether that is a very modern look, and everything in between. So that's what we like to showcase about the venue, is that you really get to make it your own. And so that's what we love for people to come and see the venue, tour with us, let us, help you build a team that can execute that vision.
And that's been the case for proms as well.
Oh,
I know I've come over after when they were getting things set up for prom, and they have some really
a night in Paris.
It's like impressive,
Right.
some of the things that they were able to do in the River House and get it set up.
We've had the whole Eiffel Tower in there before.
Yeah, I remember that. Like that's just phenomenal that
Right.
they can come in and set it up that way, and then
Right.
that just makes for a very memorable and magical occasion for the students attending their prom.
Yeah.
And-
We had a corporate event that had a casino night.
Thank you. That was going to be the next thing I said.
Exactly. So, having casino tables and dealers, and they did such a great job on their decor, and it really transformed the space and felt very much like you were in Vegas.
Yeah.
So
That's neat. So thinking outside of the box, right? Like what are some things, like as you look towards the future, like what are some events that you would be interested in trying to make happen at River House that we're not currently doing?
A haunted house.
Yeah, so we would love to host more community functions, looking at holiday parties and everything in between. So we're open, we're excited. We have a very different vision for what River House can be and what we need to do to keep it open and operational and giving back to not just our couples, but also to the seniors in our community. So we want to see new and different. So if you have an idea, if you're out there listening and are looking for a venue for a really cool event, come see us.
Yeah, because the evenings, typically there's nothing going on in the evenings through the week, right? I mean, weekends were typically booked with weddings, but evenings are usually free, and so there's a lot of opportunity there for folks to book something.
Sure.
Right, definitely. And so we always want to work around programming classes. We don't want to cancel too many classes during the week in order to set up for events, but for the right event, we definitely would be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Every once in a while, we have somebody that wants to hold an event there during the daytime, and we'll accommodate that.
Absolutely.
But it's not something we can do all the time, like you mentioned, because we really want to continue to provide that programming that we have. It's for anybody 18 or older, but it is mostly seniors who are coming to those classes through the week, and so we want to be able to continue to provide that for them, because it's just a great thing for them to be able to come out and still be involved in music or art or dance or exercise classes and so forth.
And
so,
just the social connections
exactly.
that they make at those classes.
All right. Well, that music means it's time for our show to end. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you'll tune in next week. Until then, have a great week, everybody.